Good evening, everyone. Thanks for jumping on the phone with us tonight. I'm going to be talking a bit about non-traditional candidates, diversity, diversifying your candidate pools, and overall representation in elected offices. I will caveat that since we just had an election a couple of months ago, there's a lot of data that has not been compiled and put together by organizations like the National Representation Index, which will be using a lot of their data from 2016 to talk about part of this problem. But as you see from this first slide here, according to the National Representation Index, white men in the US have almost 4 times as much political power as everyone else, despite only representing about 31% of the population. And we know how that affects policy and how it can affect people's lives day to day who aren't the folks in power. Here's another view of that same model, just broken down a little bit more, and goes into a bit of detail of how this is a veto-proof minority. Though white men are only 31% of the population, they hold 65% of elected offices across the country. And that's not just looking at federal offices, that's looking all the way down to local offices as well. And why it's so important for us to be engaging folks who haven't traditionally run for offices to think about doing so. Here's Oregon's view pre-2018. This will shift around, but we're 19 out of 50 states in DC when it comes to representation. And there's a breakdown of different populations, elected offices. White men in Oregon hold 67% of the offices, white women 28%, men of color 3%, and women of color 3% as well. Though I do expect that to shift slightly after 2018. All right. I wanted to talk briefly about governors across the country in our over history. We've had only 44 women hold governorships in our country's history, with 9 of those currently holding office, plus the mayor of DC. Only 25 people of color have held governorships, and there's a breakdown of those different populations, and only 2 openly LGBTQ folks have run for or been elected to governorships, and that's our governor, of course, Kate Brown, and the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis. So why do these communities matter? Well, we believe, and I'll say also that I adapted this from training that I would give to candidates or folks who identified as people of color, women, and LGBT folks who are interested in running for office. So I'll be speaking from their perspective, my perspective. People who don't know me, I identify as a person of color. We believe that government is improved with us. The more inclusion we have and perspectives we have at the table, we have less opportunity to let policy that negatively impacts our communities to go through. We bring our issues, our voices, and solutions to the table that may not be otherwise represented in these discussions. And there's solidarity when we have folks in power who look like and come from the backgrounds of and represent our communities. There is a sense of solidarity with the people who they are supposed to be representing. And then lastly, actually showing young people and people in general that they can run for office. They can hold positions of power in their communities. I was often told that if you can't see it, how can you dream it? We have to help break barriers for underrepresented communities by going out and talking and doing the hard work of making space for these communities to run for office. So I think there's a lot of practical applications in the field, knowing that there are a lot of organizations doing a lot of amazing work to help support diverse candidates. If it is Emerge, who runs an actual program, or Color Pack, who does additional development with candidates of color, before they run for office and then after they win elected office to support them in being an elected official. And then we have regional organizations like East County Rising, that's East Multnomah County, that does specific candidate recruitment and support out in East Multnomah County. And then Acción Política Piconista, that's APP, that's an organization run out of Woodburn that does specific Latino, Latinx candidate recruitment and development work down there. And then we have Run for Something that came out of the 2016 election, post-election, that works with young people, works to identify young people under 35 to run for office. And an organization that is called Can You Not, which is a political action committee devoted to convincing white guys not to run for office if there are qualified candidates who are not from that specific demographic. And I believe we're sending out a one-pager that lists a bunch of organizations, a lot of organs, specific organizations that do trainings here, as well as other development work one-on-one that is really impactful for folks who have never imagined that they would run for office. There's a lot of opportunity for mentorship and for connecting folks to a much larger community, both for fundraising, for networking, for resources, and general support, because running for office, no matter who you are, is not an easy task. And building solidarity and community in any race is absolutely critical. And I believe that concludes my slides. Are there any questions, Ron?
I don't see any so far. If any of the attendees would like to offer a question, please press 3 on your touch-tone phone and I will unmute you.
One last thing I'll say, because I noticed I skipped over it, the know your role part is you don't have to do all the work. You may not necessarily be the best messenger to be the first point of contact for talking to organizations or a specific person who may have come up in a brainstorm. So doing the extra work to identify, okay, who is the person who may have some influence or relationship with this person that we want to have a conversation with. So going the extra step can really help you down the road in having those conversations with potential candidates.
And we do have a question. Alexander, if it's you, I'm going to unmute you. So go ahead and ask away.
Hello, am I there?
Yes, you are.
Alexander from Jackson County. There's a little in the weeds, but the can you not? How does that work exactly? I'm kind of curious on that one. Oh, I got you here. Don't take too much time.
I believe they have a website. I haven't worked with them directly, but they were formed, I believe, right after 2016. And it's a group of progressive white folks who have come together to build an organization that does the work to prevent white guys from running for office. And CanYouNot.org is the website, and I think it's on the one-pager. But I think from my rough experience of just looking into them, they do the work of meeting with people who probably don't need to run for office when there are so many other viable candidates.
Okay, that makes sense if it's like a crowded field. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good question.
All right. Thank you, Alexander. That was a good question.
All right, thank you.